Hello, welcome to Professor Skye's Record Review, the only first listen new music review show hosted by a French professor, sometimes after leaving the gym, sometimes during office hours. Actually, the dean of my whole school is in a meeting like just on the other side of this door, so I hope he doesn't knock and ask me what am I doing. It's okay. I'm making a YouTube video, Dean. So today I'm going to be reviewing Tapan meets Génération Taragalte and their album Atlas. And it's going to take me a little while to get to the actual review because I have some stories to tell. You see, over the summer, initially, like around this time last year, my idea for last summer was to go to Morocco. One of my best friends, one of my oldest friends, one of my friends who's most responsible for me learning and living in France is my friend Sumia. There she is. And it's me in my spiky hair days. And you know, she's French, but she was born in Morocco, and I was thinking about taking the kids and going to go visit Morocco. But of course, instead, I met someone and fell in love and got married and then went to Serbia because she's from Serbia. Now, I didn't know that the artist I was going to review today was the improbable mixture of those two ideas. That it's a Serbian electronic duo producing an album by a Moroccan music band. I guess sort of Saharan blues is what you might call the genre. I didn't actually know that. What I did know was that I saw the name of the band Tapan. And it sort of juggled something in my head. So I'm listening to this music and I'm immediately liking it. Just right off the bat, I'm liking it. Okay, and I'll explain why. I'm gonna play the opening, super badass, awesome, just excellent album. Great musicianship, great production, everything. But I'm thinking, how do I know this? And I look at the other albums that they released, and I see this one called Europa. And I'm brought back to a moment of regret. Because when I was in Belgrade, when I was in Serbia, I went to a record store called Yugo Vinyl. This is a free advertisement. If you're ever in Belgrade, go to Yugo Vinyl. Here's what it looks like on the inside, okay? It's just records upon records. And you know, I was there to buy great Yugoslavian music. But I wasn't thinking of it like Yugoslavian music now. I was thinking of like, you know, the 70s and 80s, and I already made an album, a video about great Yugoslavian music of the early 80s. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to all this stuff, and there's a super awesome guy there. And he's like, oh, you're interested in Yugoslavian and Serbian music? I'm like, yeah. He brings like a stack of records like this big. And he gives them to me, and I'm just sitting there and I'm just listening. I have a picture of that too, of course. There I am in the record store listening, doing one of my favorite things, just listening to records, trying to figure out what am I going to buy. Also drinking a Coca-Cola. Always good to drink Coke when traveling. And Europa was one of the albums that he gave me. And I liked it, and I found it interesting. But the thing about buying new vinyl is it's so damn expensive. So it was going to be like a $50 purchase. And I was already buying like this weird disco stuff, and I was buying a bunch of Croatian music that my wife liked that I'm going to review because it's amazing. Yugoslavian music, but from Croatia. And so I didn't buy it. And it turns out this was a big mistake because I've since gone and listened to that record. It's beautiful. It's beautifully produced. It's all about like the nature of immigrants or migrants, whatever, people ending up in Serbia when they're trying to make it to Europe. Because Serbia is not a part of the European Union for many reasons, which would take a long video to explain. But like, it's an interesting concept, and I need to listen to it more. I just listened to it once since, you know, hearing this new record. But the whole concept is that like, about the idea of the place where they live being the place where people get stuck while trying to go somewhere better. So we're dealing with some pretty interesting artists here, this group Tapan. And it's funny because I went back and I listened to a lot of their old music, and it's hard to find an actual through line, like a specific style that defines them. But what I've noticed is it really seems that they're trying to push together electronic music and world music, meaning music from all over the world, not necessarily from the traditional Western canon, right? Not based on the Western canon, either, you know, the old world canon of, you know, Bach and Mozart, or the new world canon of Chuck Berry, right? Like music that comes from outside of that tradition. And it made me think about something, like what is the nature of electronic dance music and world music? Because usually it's very lopsided. It's like a total techno track with some little tiny sample of something exotic, right? course, exotic is just a shorthand for racist. Something exotic, so right? You can feel free to remix that into us. I wish I had enough fans. I wish I had a big enough fan base where they would actually make that into a song. Who knows? Someday. Free of copyright, by the way. Anyway, so like, that's usually the way that it goes. And it's kind of vampiric, right? Like the techno artists are just looking for a cool sample, and they find it, and then they put it on. And now sometimes it has a positive effect, right? Sometimes this leads people to discovering the real music. I think of sort of a weird example of Gregorian chants. There was a techno group in the 90s that like sampled Gregorian chants, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this is a weird thing. Everyone talks about the 90s, Nirvana, and then Limp Bizkit, and then the World Trade Center fell. There was a lot of other stuff going on there. And one of the things was like people got really into Gregorian chants. It was very odd. Not as odd as the whole Garth Brooks thing, but I can't explain that. So I think of these things, like this kind of like appropriation of other cultures. I think a little bit of like Moby. I think he did some of that. And so then when you get an album like this, Tapan meets Génération Taragalte, it's really refreshing because that's basically inversed. You don't have to look to find the stuff that is Moroccan. You have to look to find the stuff that is electronic. It's like, while I was listening to this, I was doing my workout, and they have an inverted system, so where it takes you longer to go to let go of the weight than to push the weight out. That's supposed to help your muscles. I don't know what. And this is what this is. This is sort of an inverted techno meets world, right? It's like way more. Like I had to listen to it a second, a third time to even pick up what are the electronic elements. They're definitely there. But what this ends up being is a really interesting record because of that. Because essentially what happened is Tapan takes this group, this excellent group. They're out of I forget what part of Morocco, but they apparently, according to Wikipedia, they saw the band Tenar Riwen that I reviewed like a month ago and said, well, we need to make music. So there you go. You should watch that video too. Or I don't know which one. So, they saw that and they became this band. And what Tapan is able to do is really feature this band. You really come to like it. You want to follow them. You want to listen to them. You want to see what they're doing. The musicianship is outstanding. It feels authentic. The only bits that's sort of electronic or slightly European is just a certain regularity, like little tiny instrumentation in the back that you hear, or a certain amount of like BPM that's consistent, like a little bit less of the sort of human flaws that come with listening to music. And that might sound worse, but it doesn't ever sound overly regimented. It's very cool. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the first track. I'm not going to say the name of any tracks because what I do is I type this all up on my phone and then I print out the notes. And this album is an autocorrect nightmare. I don't even know what this first track was called, but it was a nightmare. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play it for you because really this is what drew me into the record. It's just got this, the only way to say it is a super badass beginning. It has this sort of regular drum beat. Like there's a regularity of an electronic drum beat mixed in with some like authentic hand drums being played that are adding some syncopation. But it's not syncopation like electronic musicians make syncopation. It's like actual syncopation from North African rhythms and probably West African rhythms as well. Eventually there's this nice bass line, and then that bass line is picked up by a saxophone, and is picked up by a guitar, and ends up almost sounding like a round. And then the vocals come in, and they're almost like just sort of like trancey speaking. It's all in Arabic, I don't know what it is. I should have asked Sumia. What are they saying? Maybe I'll do a follow-up video sometime. Okay, so here's the first track. Oh, there it is. Jibit ala Kiam. Oh, and flutes. Lots and lots of flutes.
كيف حكام ما قديت الفيسر الكلام والهذا الجيل لا جاتو جبيت على خيام حاطين في حوض.
You can just barely hear the bass. You need to listen to it with headphones. It's in the background. You hear the hand drums going, but still, there's that super consistent drum beat going, the pulse. And then the guitar comes in, super well layered, super atmospheric. And it's that way all the way through, all 4 tracks. This, by the way, was a gift from Sumia to me when she went to Morocco. It's very nice. It's not real mosaic, it's just tiles. It's a nice looking thing, isn't it? I keep it in my office as a reminder of my good friend. Okay, so then track 2 has a nice kind of driving bass line, super crazy horns. This one is just like, they just told the horn person, just go absolutely fada, just nuts, 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 nuts. And then what's nice is there's like a nice section with some dynamics where it drops out, and it's just like, it's not as much like music going on. And then there's this weird added element where the horns are playing, and very clearly they're cut up by the computer. Again, the electronic elements of this album are just like touches, like just slight frames around the actual thing that you're seeing, as opposed to being the dominant feature, much like my techno track from earlier. Track 3, this one's easy to say, Hyatti, Hyaatti. You can definitely hear the electronic elements a little bit more in this one. A nice kind of guitar line that's repeated with some regularity, some more crazy horns, a super strong lead there. That's the one with the best dynamics, because there's just a section where the horns drop out and it's just this bass and it's just swelling. The drums and the bass, they're just kind of swelling, and it comes out and it's that crazy flute. And if I told you there was a song with like crazy flutes and saxophones, and I told you it was good, I'm not sure I'd believe you. Track 4 has some great guitar work. A lot of the guitar work is very much in line with like Tinari Ruwen or any of the other kind of West African, North African stuff that I really like a lot, which is really heavy on resolution, like kind of single string playing leading to some form of resolution. This last one is a little bit more meditative, a little bit less formed. The whole album, it's funny because I listened to it on the way into work, and it was a great driving album, you know, looking at the leaves change. And also, it was really good like in the gym, kind of keeping me going. So there you go. So there's the album. I don't really know what my 3-word review is going to be. It's odd. I asked my wife if she'd ever heard of this group, and she said no. And then she looked them up on Google.Serbia or whatever, and they were the 3rd result? No, they were on the 3rd page. So I don't think they're getting that much support in Serbia either, which makes sense. From what I know of Serbia, they're not super into multiculturalism. So I definitely think it's worth a listen. I think it's very engaging. It makes you want to listen to more of both groups, which is what a great collaboration does. I actually went and listened to another album by Tapan, and this was one with a Bangladeshi group called Metali, and it's like the same thing. Like, it's basically just a Bangladeshi album, but with these little tiny electronic elements added in. So there you go. I need to open up my door so I can have my office hours. No one ever comes, though. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. All right, until next time, for Yugo Vinyl Records, and for Sumia and me, there's the camera.